Welcome to Art 116, and we're going to do this. We're going to change um, views to the overhead view. And so I bring to you the original that we've been dealing with, the painting that we are kind of working on. We have, of course, some kind of a palette that we are putting paint on, which is really good. I wanted to take just a moment to talk about what I am talking about with bringing this into bringing it in for a landing here. So part of the things that happens when you're painting and you're putting all these dots on, you're doing all this kind of stuff, is that you start to lose your edges. The edges become a little bit less distinct as we are trying to, throw the paint on there and bring shadows up to the edge of the fruit and bring the fruit out to the edge of the shadow. And we're putting stuff on and we're covering up most of the paper that's showing through. So now I've got 99% coverage with my dots. So that's great. But I really do need to come back in and evaluate, like, this little line of dots right in here. Is that exactly where I want it to be? I actually need to maybe strengthen this outer edge, this shoulder of the piece of fruit out here, rather than this little thing in here. This is one of those interior shapes that we're going to talk about that might help reinforce the idea that this is a sphere and it's a solid and all of that stuff. But I'm losing this little piece of outside edge right here. And this little piece of the outside edge of this apple right here is maybe a little dull. Maybe we could do a couple of dots of, in my case, yellow orange to try to find this edge and reinforce a little bit better. This one's doing pretty good. And this one is doing well because I've got pretty high contrasty stuff all the way out to the edge. I've got a really well-defined edge here. I've got these three dots that are kind of helping to bring the eye around that corner and reinforce the concept that it is a round shape. Of course, we've got the shaded portion of the apple over here, which is it's kind of a crescent shape. Plus, it's got this little thing that makes an incursion into the middle of the crescent. So it's like a trident crescent here, which is kind of cool. And I've got this shadow area kind of coming right up to the edge of the fruit and carving out this really nice area of contrast. Nice contrast between the roundness of the fruit and then the shadow, which is something completely different. I'm losing that a little bit right here. There's a little bit of fuzziness in the sharply defined edge of the fruit up here. This is better defined. So we're going to talk about definitions. Definitions happen at the edges, and edges are defined either by an outside contour line, like this black, well, it is blue-violet actually, shadow that kind of helps to define the outside non-fruit portion of the fruit, and trying to just come around here and get the curve to really follow the curve of the apple. This little orange dot right here goes outside of the curve. And so it kind of breaks up what otherwise would be a really nice uniform curve right here. So I've got to bring another little black dot right in here and cut half of this orange dot off so that this thing is a more continuous round piece of fruit. So we're going to play with that. So it's edges and contrast. And how do we kind of create good edges and contrasty places where they need to be contrasty? Well, contour lines and contrasting colors, strongly, confidently applied contrasting colors. So this is a pretty good example here. And then some of these are not so great examples. I'm still kind of struggling with my two green apples. Got to push this stuff over so I got enough room to talk about this stuff. Push this over so I can talk about my green apples over here. These green apples, I'm losing it. I'm kind of losing the edge of the green apple. So I have to try to reestablish and reaffirm the edges of my green apples. This has a contour around the apple, but the actual outside edge of the apple is not as strongly suggested. And then because it's a green apple, I need to kind of come back. I haven't mixed up any green in a long time. So I need to kind of reestablish some of the green a little bit better, putting green dots over the top of some of these yellow-orange dots here so that the greenness that is expressed here is stronger. So we're going to have to come back in with a little smattering of green to kind of help to define these two green apples a little bit. This morning, the morning class, I was really defining my pool of light down here in the foreground with my highest key value, my warmest color and highest key value, the yellow orange that I have, and then going out from this kind of long oval shape of yellow orange dots with only a smattering of um, red orange dots. Then we get into more red orange dots that kind of circle the wagons and help to define this pool of light here. And as we get into the corners, we get an intermixing and a smattering of other colors of dots in the corner and in this corner. The background, to make that background really recede into space and move away from the viewer's eye, we need to do a lot of coverage, and I still haven't completely covered all of my paper. I've got a lot of white paper showing through in the background, but my colors are blue, violet, and blue green. So I should have like 45 or so percent of blue, green, and blue violet in the background with just this smattering 5% or so of reds, red oranges, and even the occasional yellow orange dot just to break up stuff so that it isn't just a Johnny one note color back there. This is more interesting because it has a smattering and an interspersing of other color dots in here, so it's not just one color. This has to be a little bit even more so in the background to make it more neutralized, like this kind of brownish area in the background is in the original painting, to be able to knock that back so that it recedes into the background and allows the fruit to advance and pop towards the viewer. One of the things I did for the morning class is I took this white pen that I went to I don't know, the store and bought. And this pen has a little thing inside of it to shake it up to make sure that it actually operates and works for us. And oh, there we go. And so I was kind of going through here and trying to find some of those colors that or color shapes that I was interested in. So like on this portion of this apple, and this is the one that's more like a donut because they put the stem end right here. So this, you'll have to forgive where my pen exploded this morning. Oh, and it's exploding again. Look at that. Okay, but that's going to be an area of highlight, and there's going to be another highlight area up here and a couple of highlights over here, kind of carefully placed in here so that they kind of circle the wagons and your eye kind of connects up the dots and stuff. And so you can see where those highlights are. In this apple over here, we've got them here, and here's one, and here's a highlight, and here's a strange little highlight. But there's also kind of a secondary highlight over here and something over here. And then there's the big shadow on this side. So you can kind of see that the shapes of either the large crescent-shaped shadow or the way that some of the highlights get to be placed in here, they try to follow round contours. There's kind of a round shoulder of form, you know, up here around the stem end. This is the bumpy part of the apple. And so you get these bumps that have different kind of color things on the bumps of the apple up near the stem end. And sometimes we get some variation in tone kind of around the bumpy end of the apple. This is the stem end of the apple looking straight at you, and the bumps in that apple, you know, are kind of these, you know, again, areas that kind of have a feeling that they catch highlights and that kind of thing. This one's a really strange one. We've got this sort of I don't know, it's a curvy kind of a upside down triangle area that's a huge highlight on this apple here. And then we've got secondary kinds of ones that are sort of comma shaped up around the stem end of the apple here. But again, they are complemented by the shadow portion of this apple, which is this. And this is that what I'm calling kind of a trident kind of a feel where it's not just a crescent shape, but the color kind of comes in the middle and then goes back out again, almost like a fork. And we see that, you know, here too, we see that kind of forking of the shadow happening of the crescent shape on this side of the apple and on this side of the apple. And so we want to look for those kinds of shapes of the shadows. They're going to be a little bit different on every apple, but it's the same similar concept. And it would be so boring if he painted the apples exactly the same way on each apple. So having a little bit of difference and a little bit of variety in each crescent-shaped shadow is nice. Having a little bit of difference in each of the highlights is kind of a nice thing to do, and he does it well, you know, creating these highlight little bit left of center highlights in each apple, and that's fantastic. The shadows, there's only two cast shadows in the whole piece. You know, there's this tongue-shaped cast shadow that comes off the back edge of this apple. There's an implied shadow that kind of comes off and goes off of the page. So you just have to assume that it continues off into space off the shape, and would be something like that. So these would sort of be, you know, the shadows. Otherwise, we've got these kind of shadowy areas between the fruit, this triangle here, some of these little triangular little places between the apples are, you know, deep shadows. And so we really want to make sure that we're catching those really deep shadows. Like here's a little triangular spot down here. And really punching those with our lowest key possible color. Otherwise, you know, like I said, we kind of have this pool of light in the foreground. Get my pen to write. Pool of light in the foreground. We've got some shadows in the two corners, a little bit of a string of shadow, you know, across the back, and then somewhat neutralized value behind the apples, which allows the apple to pop. But this neutralized area plus the darker, kind of murkier shadows in the two corners allow the background to recede from the viewer, while this pool of light really makes the foreground pop for the viewer. And so bringing this in and bringing it all home for us now, I'm gonna, I need to try to rescue some of these shapes here, and maybe I'm gonna do it with a high key string of pearls effect to try to find my outside edges here. But I also have to mix up my blue-green and bring a lot of blue-green back in there too. So first things first, a little bit of yellow orange to make a high key outside contour, because I just need to reestablish that shape. These two green apples just don't quite have it, and so they need a little bit more help here. And so I got this started up here, and so you just want to be real careful and very deft in the way that you're going to make your string of pearls kind of an effect. I'm going to be looking at what's happening down here on the bottom edge of this apple and trying to pick up and follow the contour of this apple down at the bottom, trying to make my string of pearls follow that shape. And you know, you're trying to find where it goes. That kind of helped. That helped a lot, I think. I may have to bring this one in just a little bit more this way to get that kind of spherical concept happening again. And then this one is kind of totally lost over here. So I really need to find the bottom of this apple and bring it around. Find, because you know, you lose the contour lines when you cover up all of the original line drawing from the computer. And so we, as artists, then are called upon to actually try to find that shape and then refine the shape so that it works. And so I am trying to bring this in. You know, it appears differently on the computer than it does in front of my face. And so I'm kind of checking both my computer monitor to see where this is headed up here, as well as trying to find, you know, on the painting itself, where is the outside edge of this? And also, do I have enough paint, adequate paint on the tail end of the brush to be able to get to reestablish this outside contour of this? And Need to bring this part of the curve out just a little bit more because it was a little flat. Sometimes that'll happen. Okay, so I've sort of reestablished my, that's better. I've reestablished the contours of these two apples. And I think I'm going to go ahead and just change colors now. And so I'm going to clean off my brush, the butt of my brush, and make myself some blue-green before the day gets away from me. And then play with blue-green in those apples because I've got a whole bunch of high key kind of established in these apples. And now I need to knock down that high key again and have my green dots kind of reasserting themselves for the green areas of these two apples. We're going to start off kind of trying to reestablish some of the movement that's happening in the shadows of both of these apples. And it kind of, it's a strange set of shapes that kind of goes in fits and spurts. So bear with me as I bring the green in. But I need to kind of like reestablish this green. So this is an area where I'm just going to take a bite out of some of these orange dots by placing a green dot that's kind of taking half of a bite out of each one of them. I don't want to obliterate the orange dots, the yellow orange dots that I have, but by putting just a little bit of half a dot covering over the orange dot with my blue-green paint, I can kind of start to reestablish this greenish area of the shaded portion of this, and we'll see how that works. It's kind of hard to talk and look and paint all at the same time, but I'm the teacher. I'm supposed to be able to do that. So we'll see how that works. All right. And this is where I was talking about the other day with being able to actually paint over things. If something is not working out, to be able to actually, just let it dry and then bring in some more paint and paint right over it to try to get, something reestablished here. So I've got this crescent shape that kind of swells in the middle, a bit reestablished here for us. I'm going to come over to this side of the apple over here, this secondary crescent shape. And there's this little piece of kind of, it's kind of a shadow. It kind of comes up and around and in. And so I just wanted to try to find a way to make that happen if possible by bringing a little bit of a comma-shaped area of green in from that side, so that this comma shape, this curving shape caresses the apple over on this side. This larger area of shadow also is caressing the side of the apple over on this side. That's good. That's helping. I like that. I might bring a couple of dots in around the edges of the stem end to see if I can make that happen a little bit better. Coming up into this apple, again, I think I got to just knock back some of the strength of some of these yellow-orange dots, not covering them up completely, but at least it's like Pac-Man. I'm taking a bite, out of the side of a dot so that I'm sort of half covering a dot. And that effect, is starting to bring back the green, but it allows some visual color mixing of the yellow orange with the green, with the blue green, and to get this to kind of get reestablished as a little bit stronger blue green area up here. And so we're going to do some of that. And I may even have to come all the way out to the edge here and push hard against the edge here, but still leave enough of the edge of that string of pearls to keep the contrast between the apple, which is kind of green on this side, and the background, which is going to be a little bit darker, a little bit murkier, neutralized color in the background. And so that edge right there that has some of the my yellow orange dots that are kind of half showing up is still really important for that. There's an area of this apple in the original over here that also has a little bit of green, kind of just caressing this portion of the apple right here. So I thought I would just do a little bit of that just to try to get that going. It looks like hell on the computer monitor, however, that's too bad. And I've got a little bit of this happening down here too. So I'm going to bring a little bit of the blue-green in here. See how that works to try to get, and this almost like impressionist painting. I know these guys are post-impressionists. I get that. But we're really playing with paint and paint application, but also color. This is, after all, about the plastic nature of color, how color itself can create form and a sense of three-dimensionality to try to get the highlights to pop forward, to try to get the cooler colors to wrap around, and thereby, working with each other to get those spherical apple shapes happening for us, which is no mean feat. I know I'm in another apple, but there's a little suggestion of just something that's kind of a curving shape, over here. So I thought I would just, with a couple of dots, try to get a sense of curving movement happening in this red apple right here. I may want to come in and do something with some of this not directly illuminated surface over here. It's not quite shaded, but it's just a little bit. So I'm just kind of coming in here with a little blue-green to just boop, 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 a little bit of that to see if I can see how that's going to work. And if it doesn't work, I'll have to come back with like a couple more yellow-orange dots to rescue it again. It's kind of nice in painting to be able to bring your colors into all of the different areas of the composition, because that helps to unify and harmonize the composition a little bit. So I might need a couple of green dots in here. I might have to bring some sense of green into the center of that apple stem end there. Um, there's just a tiny little bit of green in every apple because they were probably picked from the tree just a little on the green side. But the artist is unifying the whole composition by bringing just a little bit of green, blue-green into each apple. And if possible, to get the brush stroke or when you connect the dots, to try to get that to be a like a comma shape or some kind of a round shape that's gonna make the eye kind of follow around the contour of the apple and give us a better sense of roundness and volume to the whole fruit. So we just get a suggestion of curvilinear movement happening through the apple. It's off center, but it kind of gets the job done. It's in terms of bringing the viewer's eye around, having the eye circulation happen around, every single piece of fruit like that. So this is pretty good. What was I doing here when I keep jumping around and I keep getting lost a little bit? Sorry about that. So I'm going to change paint one more time and go back to the highest key one I've got, my yellow orange, and I'm going to try to really rescue now some of these pieces of fruit that I may just be losing some of this. So this is a troubling area, this one right here. So I'm trying to get something happening here to really try to rescue the roundness of that area of that apple. Also, I've got the stem end of this one way up here near the edge, and so I need to just try to figure out how I'm going to finesse that against the background. And so this is our task. This is how we play with color. And you may think that, oh, this is just a little too much of a painting class now and not quite a design class anymore. But really, kind of understanding the optical color mixing and what colors will do when they're sitting next to each other and how color shapes will kind of influence how colors work in a composition. It is design, and I need to make this um, this highlight here do something just a little bit different. So I'm kind of going up into some of these red dots, and I'm taking a little bit of a bite out of the red dot with a little portion of a yellow orange dot to just make that a little bit richer, make the yellow pop a little bit more towards the viewer, and see if there's anything else I can do to kind of make this work. To get that apple to do its appley thing. And sometimes, it's just like, well, I need one dot right there to complete this and to make it possible for your eyes to follow that contour all the way around. Just looking for the last little additional pieces of color that can help fill in a relatively dead space or kind of help to unify a space in the composition that really needs a little bit of a little bit more consolidation, unification, something like that. So trying to get this part of this composition of this apple to really have a nice highlight in it. Even if I have to bring that highlight over just a little bit more to the right, it's still left of center, but it's a nice round highlight that just kind of occupies the left of center portion of each of the apples so that they have a kind of a similarity to them, even though they're not exactly done the same way. I remember the final thing I was going to do here. I see that I've been at this for half an hour, and I don't want to waste your time, but I do have some blue-green paint still on my palette. And so now I want to go back up into this background and just try to do a little bit of more kind of filling in. And sometimes I'm going to take a little bit of a bite out of a blue violet dot, but I also kind of need to fill in some of these white areas where the paper is still showing through to try to knock that back a little bit and to get a little stronger sense of the green happening up here, because I just don't think I've got enough green mixed in with everything else in the background. So I'm going to try to kind of get the green to take up some of that space where the white is showing through. And then occasionally I'm going to be taking a little bit of a bite out of a blue violet dot so that they're overlapping, so that they're not just next to each other. We don't want to just paint with this paint kind of next to dots and then have a little bit of white showing through. We'd like it to be completely covered and then have the dots overlapping slightly if possible to really get a better sense of, is one dot is going to be on top, the other one's going to be underneath of it. One dot is taking a bite out of the other dot. That really helps to get a sense of unity happening in the composition when these are actually overlapping just ever so slightly. Now the top of that thing right there, I need to take a bite out of that dot and this dot and bring this contour to be a much more kind of a uniform curve and to really make good strong contrast between the apple and the background. And so I'm trying to be really careful in how I come in here because I want that curve to be nice and uniform. And so any place where we're out of spec a little bit there, I just want to come in and play a little bit. And this is bothering me a little bit. So I need to soften the strength of some of this stuff down here with a little bit of green, blue-green. Move that into there because it's a shaded portion of the apple. And Going into the next apple over, I may also need to get just a little bit more blue-green kind of mixed in here on this bottom edge to give more of a sense of, I don't know, volume or presence down there, even if I'm going to lose it a little bit. I may be losing it again, and I may have to come back and try to rescue it some more. But that's the idea of playing with these colors and interspersing them and overpainting them and trying to overlap them just a little bit to just get the effect that you're trying to achieve in those colors. Like right here, I just need to overlap that dot a little bit, overlap this dot and this dot just a bit, because sometimes they are just too strong and they need to get kicked back just a little bit so that it works better as a composition. This is awfully shiny. This is all, really glossy paint. And so sometimes it's kind of difficult with the reflections and everything else, but you, I think, are getting the idea of what I'm after and what I'm up to here. So I'm just going to put a few dots here and call it a day. You've been very patient doing all of this. I assumed, since I only had 3 people show up today, that you might not have your pieces done and you might not be ready to talk about them. So I just kind of launched into this thing because that's the way that was with the morning class. If you have a piece done that you wanted to share today, or it's far enough along that you'd like a little feedback on it, I would be happy if we wanted to share a little bit today. We can unmute the mics and you can just kind of show it from your on your webcam if you want to turn on your webcam, and that would be great. And I'm kind of looking up at the participants to see if anybody's just jumping over there to unmute their mics and waiting with bated breath to share your piece.
So I have mine that I'm a little bit able to share.
Yay, Mary!
Yeah,
God bless you. Thank
Yeah.
God. All right, let me make sure that you are pinned. I'm going to pin the video to you. Do you want? And I'm going to unpin the video for me, I guess, because I don't need. Okay, so hi, there you are. Okay, so you are pinned. You have the full attention of all of us. Do you want to? Can you lift it up and show it to us with your webcam?
Well, I have it. If we could screen share, I thought it might be clearer if I just took a picture of it.
Okay, I have enabled that piece of screen sharing, so you can go ahead and share your screen now if you want. That'd be fantastic.
Okay, so let's see here. So I just hit the green button down there, right?
Yeah, and that should show you all of the documents you have open on your desktop.
There it goes. Okay. So I didn't actually have as much time as I thought I would. So I just started it today, and I thought I should do an outline so I kind of know where I'm going with
Okay.
it.
All right, it has appeared now. So
It has it? Okay.
yes, it looks roughed out to me. You are roughing it
Mhm.
out and kind of uh, assigning different color areas to different color shapes in the composition. And so I see the beginnings of red apples happening. I see the beginnings of yellow highlights happening on the apples. The background is starting to get filled in. The foreground is starting to get filled in. Your shadows are starting to get filled in. This is a great place to be. This is good. Now, I don't know how many hours of work you've got into this. I would guesstimate that you've got 1 or 2 hours into this, and this might be a 6-hour painting. So you might have some work ahead of you.
Yeah. I've got all day Tuesday that I have clear that I can work on it.
Okay. Well, look at some of these recordings that I've made, including today's thing, and that will really help you with the finishing touches and filling it out in the middle. Because yeah, we're going to want to get like total coverage and get all of the white kind of to disappear so that we're actually, overlapping and interspersing with just pure color dots. And you will get this, but you know, it's going to be kind of murky, and then you'll be able to pull it out of the fire, at the last minute, which is what we all do with this. And that's what I was trying to do today. You got a good start on this, Mary. It looks fantastic.
I tried to leave some space actually in the violet part because I thought I wouldn't have enough room to put the other colors in there. But I noticed on yours, you're really just layering on top of the layers. So it doesn't seem to matter about leaving the space necessarily.
No, it doesn't matter. And that looks fantastic. That's a really good start. Thank you for sharing. That's
Mhm.
all right. I see your paint's over on the left side too.
Yeah.
That's nice too. Good job. Okay, well you can
Okay.
stop your
All right.
screen share,
So
and we'll get
that's
back
up
to
there.
replacing the pin with my pin. And I'm just going to kind of emerge from all of this because it was so much fun. So come back to my talking head view and just see, is there anybody else want to play our game today? Otherwise, we kind of went through identifying the different color shape areas in the composition. And I thought that maybe by drawing these contour lines around all of these things, either the highlights or the shadow shapes or the cast shadows and everything, that you could then see what I'm really talking about when I'm saying that there's all of these different areas of the composition to respond to. And then that gives you something to actually respond to when we're trying to do this. So um, I'm feeling good about my painting. I'm about to glue this down onto a piece of Bristol board so that I have a reinforced flattened painting like last year's version of this. This is glued down onto another piece of Bristol so that it's a lot more durable and sturdy, suitable for framing, because this could go into a $10 frame from Walmart across the street. And this would be a beautiful thing to hang in your home. Your bathroom, kitchen, or living room would, be graced by one of your own paintings. And so that would be a wonderful thing. I think that's going to do it for now. I'm just going to say goodbye and see you guys again on Wednesday. So long for now, and on Wednesday.